Hocus pocus, everybody focus. Welcome to English 110 with Miss Z. Today we're going to be analyzing a poem by a very famous poet, and we're going to be discussing the poem as well as working through it and analyzing it. Do note that I am aware that all poems are subject to analysis and personal input. Therefore, if things differ from the way you see it or the way I see it, fear not, it's just a poem. Alright, so before we start the poem, we first need to read it before we can analyze it because we need to know what it's about, right? So get out your poems. It is called The Last Lesson of the Afternoon, and we're going to enjoy this. Last Lesson of the Afternoon by D.H. Lawrence. When will the bell ring and end this weariness? How long have they tugged the leash and strained apart my pack of unruly hounds? I cannot start them again on a quarry of knowledge they hate to hunt. I can haul them and urge them no more. No longer now can I endure the brunt of the books that lie out on the desks, a full 60, of several insults of blotted pages and scroll of slovenly work that they have offered me. I am sick, and what on earth is the good of it all? What good to them or me, I cannot see. My last dear fuel of life to heap on my soul, and kindle my will to a flame that shall consume their dross of indifference and take the toll of their insults in punishment? I will not. I will not waste my soul and my strength for this. What do I care for all that they do amiss? What is the point of this teaching of mine and of this learning of theirs? It all goes down the same abyss. What does it matter to me if they can write a description of a dog or if they can't? What is the point to us both? It is all my aunt. And yet I supposed to care with all my might. I do not and will not. They won't and they don't, and that is all. I shall keep my strength for myself. They can keep theirs as well. Why should we beat our heads against the wall of each other? I shall sit and wait for the bell. Guys, this is a fantastic poem. It is mainly because it's so relatable to teachers and students alike. I personally love this poem mainly because it is so relatable. So before we start our basic analysis of this poem, we first need to know about D.H. Lawrence himself as a writer and as a poet, as well as about look at his poetry, looking at it in depth and knowing what he wrote about. Him as the author, he was an American poet and writer, and he focused on themes such as the dehumanizing effects of modernity and industrialization, sexuality, emotional health, vitality, spontaneity, and instinct. Do note that his poetry was often based on his own life and his own experiences, as most poets do. So looking at that and at the poem we read, it is clear to note that he was a teacher at some point in his life. He did do this because it was what he was good at, being a teacher. He knows this. It's his area of expertise. Then, looking at the poem as a whole, it is important to note it was written near the end of World War One, and it's significant because he refused to fight. And when you refuse to fight, you have to do a civilian job, and Lawrence chose teaching because it is his area of expertise, as I have said. Do note as well that the poem lends itself to take a glimpse into the mind of a teacher, what they think and what they experience in a classroom, especially during this time of day. Now, looking at the structure, we have to do this because analyzing the structure is as important as the poem, and we need to do this because it is part of the typography. So the poem has 6 stanzas, 27 lines, and a rhyme scheme like, oh my goodness guys, this confused the living fudge out of me because there is technically no rhyme. Looking at the rhyme scheme line by line, we see A, B, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, H, G, I, J, K, J, K, L, M, M, L, N, O, N, O. Guys, there is rhyme, there's just no structure to it. But now we get to the fun part I personally enjoy poetry. There's nothing quite like it. It's the analysis. So we're going to do a line by line analysis, and when we do that, we need to start with the first thing, which is the title. Now, the title, Last Lesson of the Afternoon, leads us to two things that we can assume about the poem. Now, the poet is trying to show the reader what he thinks the teacher and learners think and feel during this time of day, also that he accepts this attitude of the learners, because if he didn't accept the attitude of the learners or himself, he would not have felt the need to write the poem in the first place. It just basically shows that he doesn't care really anymore what happens during this time. It also gives us the time, which is late in the day. Now, stanza 1, line 1, gives us when will the bell ring and end this weariness. Now, the line just basically means they are wondering if the bell would ever ring and end the school day. You know that feeling when you're thinking admin has forgotten about you and the bell will never ring and you're literally counting the seconds. Now, this is what they are feeling. And the word weariness leads to the thought of tiredness. They are tired. Lunch has long been over, and they just want to go home and play and just not be in the class anymore. They are tired of the day, so they want it to end. How long have they tugged the leash and strained apart? Now, guys, tug the leash and strained apart in this line just basically means he's trying to teach them. He's trying to lead them into a direction, but they don't want to be led, right? So he wants to teach them, they want to play. He wants them to settle down, they want to be loud. So he's trying to lead them, but they're going against him. Just note that tugged just basically means to pull and strain is to struggle. My pack of unruly hounds, right, guys? So this is a brilliant use of metaphor. He's comparing his learners to hunting dogs, and it's a beautiful image because hunting dogs are energetic and busy, right? Much like his learners. Continuing on this, I cannot start them again on a quarry of knowledge they hate to hunt. Now remember, quarry means prey, and it links well to his metaphor of them being hunting dogs. Because if I give you, as hunting dogs that I've trained to hunt foxes, a tortoise, you're not going to be excited, you're not going to want to hunt it, you're going to want to leave it, right? So knowledge, what he's trying to do, is a tortoise to hunting dogs who are trained to hunt foxes. They don't want to do it, therefore they don't pay attention to it. Then looking at the next line, I can hold them and urge them no more. Now here we see our first use of pronouns, right? My and I are the personal pronouns of the teacher. Now guys, this is Lawrence. We're talking about Lawrence. It's his poetry based off his life, right? So whenever we see these pronouns, do realize we're talking about him, right? It's just a coincidence that this is so relatable to other teachers and learners as well. Also note when we see them, they and their, we're talking about the learners, right? And not anybody else. So do note about this. Right? Then remember that hold means to pull strongly and urge means to motivate. So he, as a teacher, he cannot pull them into the direction of knowledge anymore. He cannot motivate them to want to learn anymore. He cannot do it. He is tired. And the whole line just basically shows that he has given up on trying, right? He tried to force them to learn and now he has stopped. He can no longer do it. The three lines together just basically means that this is something he experiences only during the end of the day, during the last lesson. That too, no longer now can I endure the brunt. Endure means to put up, and the brunt is the first impact of an attack. Now guys, this is rather funny when we look at the two of them. So basically, in the second line that he says, of the books that lie out on the desks, a full 3 score. Now, full 3 score is 60 assignments. So together, these two things feels like a military attack on him. And he needs to survive and put up with this attack that's placed on him. And the lines together just basically implies that he is tired of all this, right? He does not want to mark any more assignments because they feel like an attack that I have. Now, several insults of blotted pages and scroll. Guys, blotted pages just implies the dipping pen spills. Now, this is a time when they still use the dipping pens. You know, the Harry Potter pens that you have to dip into the pot and write. Now, they are hasty, so they do not shake off the excess ink, which spills on the pages and creates a huge mess, right? And it looks very bad. So with this in mind, do note that they are hasty, hence they are scrawling, which is a messy handwriting. Now I'm imagining a crab being thrown into a pot of ink and just let loose on a whole bunch of pages, creating like ancient hieroglyphics that need to be deciphered instead of being read. These two things together just indicates that the work is messy. They have no respect for the teacher or his work and feels like an insult to them. He doesn't want to look at it anymore. He's tired of seeing this messy work. And the two things together of slovenly work that they have offered me, slovenly just means untidy or dirty. So the hasty pages with scrawling words and the blotted pages, it is an insult to them. It's untidy, it's dirty, and he wants to no longer look at it. I am sick, and what on earth is the good of it all? What good to them or me I cannot see. Now guys, the two lines has a dual meaning, right? So the good part is that the learners are looking forward to going home and he looks forward to them leaving. The bad part is that I need to note is that they still are inside the class. They cannot leave just yet. And for him, as the teacher, he still has to mark the work, whether they are there or not. That's why he's asking, what is the good of it all? Why are we still here? Why do we have to go through this pain if it leads to all of us being either happy or unhappy at the same time? It holds no purpose for us. So this is why he asks, what is the good of it all? Right? What good to them or what good to me? I cannot see it. Also note that this stanza is focusing on the written work. He teaches something that is written. It's not a practical assignment. They have their pens and handwritings and assessments. It is not visual arts where you have to paint or shop where you have to build. It's not EGD, right? It is written work. And it makes sense. He is a writer. He teaches language, for example. So written work. On to the next stanza. My last dear fuel of life to heap on my soul. Do note the first part of this line. My last dear fuel of life. It indicates it is energy, which brings us to a brilliant metaphor that is well hidden in the next line. And kindle my will to a flame that shall consume. Now guys, kindle means to start a fire and consume means to use up. So I'm imagining this image of a car. Guys, to run your car you need fuel, but to start it you need to ignite it, start a fire, right? However, the longer your car runs, the more fuel it uses up. Therefore, the longer he tries to give energy, like the longer he tries to teach them, the more of his fuel and life energy is being used up. And then using these things together in the next part, where he says, the dross of indifference and take the toll, right guys? Dross basically means rubbish, right? So he feels that their lack of interest, their disinterest and aloof behavior, right, is rubbish to them. And the more he tries to teach them with them having this mindset, the more energy he loses, right? And the more he needs to start his fire, the more fuel he uses. It's a horrible cycle. He feels that his energy is being wasted on this aloof behavior, right? And of their insults in punishment, I will not. Guys, it all adds up. It's ironic. Teachers punish learners. It's not swapped. He feels that him putting in the energy and his life force to teach them and them being disinterested in the subject is a punishment to him, right? They are punishing him with their lack of interest in his subject. So this is why it's ironic. Then looking at I will not, right, it indicates that he's no longer going to be punished by their careless work. He no longer cares. The entire stanza basically shows that he's not going to spend time and energy on his learners. He tried to teach them. He really did try, but he failed. So thus, he no longer has the energy or the time to waste on them. Stanza 4, I will not waste my soul and my strength for this. Guys, my soul and my strength is his spiritual and physical strength. You may not know this, but teaching is an extremely physical and emotional job. We are on our feet for hours and hours on end, and it's really exhausting. 6 to 7 hours, right? And when we sit down, we're seen as unprofessional, says the person sitting down. But still, we have to work, we have to run around on errands. But the spiritual energy, the emotional energy, guys, we are working with humans. I, as a teacher, cannot call a twat a twat. I may not do it. Yes, we have our mean teachers in schools, but there's a limit that they may not cross, and it is emotionally draining to work with this. So his learners, a pack of hunting dogs, right? They are draining his emotional energy, and he will not waste any more of it. Then looking at the next line, what do I care for all that they do amiss? Guys, amiss means to do wrong or go against the rules. So this is really just him saying in the two lines together that he will not care about what they do now, right? If they break a window, break a window. If you don't do your homework, don't do your homework. I don't care what you do. What is the point of this teaching of mine and of this learning of theirs? It all goes down the same abyss. Now, guys, an abyss is a bottomless pit, right? It's an empty hole that never stops. And he feels that his learning or the teaching he's giving and the learning they should be doing is going down this empty hole. It doesn't go anywhere. It's in the one ear out the other, useless and pointless. So why should he do this? Right? This is why he writes this. What is the point of it? Because it doesn't go anywhere. Stanza 5. What does it matter to me if they can write a description of a dog or if they can't? Guys, these two lines finally give us the subject. He teaches creative writing. And it makes sense. I mean, he's D.H. Lawrence. He's a poet who writes for a living. It's what he's good at. You won't have a math teacher teaching arts. I mean, their focus is on math. The same here. He teaches English, right? It is his strong suit. So do note that this is really what he does, right? He doesn't teach some weird obscure subject. What is the point to us both? It is all my aunt. Guys, this line confused the heck out of me, but I've concluded that it's all my aunt has two meanings. That is all, and it means nothing to either. Now, that is all is just basically, what is the point? That is all. There is no point, right? And it means nothing to either. He doesn't care if they can write the work. He doesn't care if they have learned the work, right? And he knows that they don't care either. Maybe 1% will. And yet I'm supposed to care with all my might. Guys, despite the grammar, yeah, we have a lovely sentence where he should care, but he doesn't. He should, but he's over it. He's feeling meh. Last stanza, I do not and will not. They won't and they don't, and that is all. Guys, here we have a beautiful, beautiful example of a poetic device we don't use often, and that is chiasmus. It's a balanced sentence. He literally uses a sentence the same way forwards and backwards. I do not and will not, they will not and they do not, right? So the other part is just contractions, but no matter which way you read it, it's exactly the same sentence, and that's why it's balanced. Right, so then looking at the next line, I shall keep my strength for myself, they can keep theirs as well. Guys, the two lines together basically means he has finally come to the conclusion to not waste his energy and not care. Guys, I've said this repeatedly already, but it's just to emphasize how little time or energy he wants to waste on these hunting dogs. Why should we beat our heads against the wall? Guys, notice this idiom. It's a beautiful idiom, one we use often. Beating your head against the wall is just basically meaning wasting time on achieving the pointless or impossible, and shows a lack of concern. If I tell you to empty the ocean with a fork, right, not only will you waste your time, right, but it is impossible. And he feels that teaching is the same way, right? It's emptying the ocean with a fork, useless and disappointing, and that's why it shows a lack of concern. Then finally, we go to our last line of each other. I shall sit and wait for the bell. Now, guys, here we have the line, the final line, I shall sit and wait for the bell, which basically concludes our entire poem, where he says all he cares about is the bell ringing at the end of the day. He's done, he's over it, he wants to go home, they all do. So yes, that is the analysis of Last Lesson of the Afternoon. So all in all, this is actually a brilliant poem, mainly because it really reflects on what we as teachers feel and experience, and what learners themselves experience, which is kind of sad in a way, because the last lesson is usually the best lesson, mainly because the teachers are tired and the learners are tired, and it's the ultimate time to prove to a teacher that you can play, like do some fun work. But yes, so this is our first poem that we've analyzed. Whoop whoop, right? I just really need you guys to remember that poems are open to interpretation, right? It's always open to interpretation. And if there was things that you noticed that I didn't, feel free to share with me, because I love learning things. And yeah, this has been fun. See you next time.